Welcome all my fellow Redskin brethren and sister. It's news that's nightly about the Redskins. Welcome to the Redskins Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, it's a lot of things going on, and over the past 24 to 48 hours, the biggest story out of Redskins Park has been the potential trading of Trent Williams. Now, we've saw some blockbuster deals go down just a day ago, none bigger than Jalen Ramsey being shipped off to Los Angeles in exchange for 2 first-round picks, one in 2020, one in 2021, along with a 2021 fourth-round selection. So that is a monster deal. Now, you're not going to get that kind of haul for Trent Williams, but the thought of trades taking place as we near the trade deadline gets Redskins fans antsy, and they want to see something done. Trent doesn't want to be here. And so hearing that the Browns are in fact interested, and we saw the Browns going into their bye week struggle to protect Baker Mayfield. Mayfield now has a hip injury. He needs to be protected. His offensive line has been a sieve this season. At times, they could use a guy like Trent Williams. Well, the Browns media has pressed their general manager, John Dorsey, and amazingly enough, how about that? Another team actually having their GM address the media. Okay, that's a novel concept, but we don't want to hear Bruce Allen talk anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But bottom line is, Dorsey, when addressing this issue, was asked about Trent Williams and were the Browns in fact interested, and he pretty much said it takes two to tango in regards to Trent Williams, meaning he brought up Trent Williams. He has contacted Bruce Allen about the availability of one Trent Williams, and really, Bruce hasn't been really interested in negotiating in terms of trying to make a deal get done. And so, I tweeted that out. And can we just get Bruce out of here already? Hashtag fire Bruce Allen, man. Get his ass the hell out of here. It's ridiculous that we've got a commodity sitting right here, and we as fans all know that this season isn't going anywhere, and you start to look towards the future. I'm not one that is big on tanking. You're not going to hear that come out of my mouth. I'll let you guys talk about that. That's not my thing. If we lose games, I don't mind necessarily, but I don't want to really ingrain that culture in the guys in the locker room. I want guys wanting to win, and I want them to know what it feels like to win in a Redskins uniform. I don't want to hear Bruce Allen talking about guys like Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne and Landon Collins and Sean Dion Hamilton knowing how to win because they did it at Bama. That doesn't help us here. We need them to know what it feels like to win in a Redskins uniform, not in an Alabama uniform. And so I want guys to establish that culture here, and losing doesn't do that. And and I talked about that, and I always talk about that every single year when tanking starts to come up, when we're out of the race and people start talking about wanting to lose games purposefully. I always go back and reference that there's a fine line you walk when you start losing football games. And look, we can talk about tanking as fans. The players aren't using that word. That's not a player terminology there. All right, that's a fan thing. All right, that's a media-driven term. You're not going to hear players talking about tanking because they're playing for their livelihoods. All right, whether they're on this roster or not next year, they're playing to maybe be somewhere else. They can't afford to put bad tape out there. They can't afford to drop a ball on purpose. They're not guaranteed a job here in Washington. So if they don't play well, they may not get a job elsewhere on one of the other 31 teams around the league. So they can't afford to put bad tape out there. So you don't have to worry about players necessarily tanking. But I can tell you, as a guy that has played sports, you start to lose football games, or you start to lose games in general, and you start to have this woe is me, oh, here we go again mentality. And you start thinking that even though you're up in the game 20-3, they score a touchdown to cut the deficit in half to 20-10. And if you got a loser mentality, instead of you thinking, hey, let's put these boys away, let's go get a drive, go back up 27-10 and put these boys away, you're starting to think to yourself, oh shit, Here they come. You start hearing footsteps, and next thing you know, you go 3 and out. They score again, and now you really feel the pressure. They're breathing right on your neck, and you expect the worst to happen instead of expecting to make a play to win the game. You saw it on Sunday. You saw it from a team that didn't know how to win, that is accustomed to losing. They finished that game like an 0-5 outfit. All right. And the more you lose, the more of that you're going to get. The more of that seeps into the locker room and ingrains itself in these players and in their thought process. They thought they were going to lose that game. And if the Dolphins really wanted it, they probably would have taken that game from the Redskins. That's what you want to guard against. That's why tanking isn't a good idea. But at some point, the Redskins have to be realistic with themselves. They've got to understand that they've got to start acquiring assets, preferably in the draft. And I heard some people talking about wanting to get a player back in return for Trent Williams in addition to draft choices. I'm good on the players. Honestly, I really am. I don't think there's anything in Cleveland necessarily that I want that would help us not only this season, but more importantly, into the future. I can't think of one guy that we would get for Trent Williams. Obviously, I would take a Myles Garrett. They're not giving Myles Garrett away, and they wouldn't trade him for Trent Williams anyway. But what I'm saying is I don't necessarily want a David Njoku. And again, he's damaged goods. Not to say that he can't get healthy and become a really good player in this league, but I'm good. I just want your draft I just want your draft choices. Really, I do. I really don't want any of your players. I don't want any developmental guys. I don't want a guy that looks good and looks like he has potential. That's okay. I'll draft my own guy that looks good, that potentially has some upside. I'm good. Thanks, but no thanks. Just give me the draft pick and let me decide who fits in a Washington Redskins uniform. So I'd love to see the Redskins do something with Trent. And the trading deadline is next week. We have all of this week, all of next week to figure something out. Something needs to be done by, I believe it's 2 Wednesdays from now. I think the trading deadline ends on the 29th of October. Right now we sit here. It is the 15th of October. So we essentially have 2 weeks. All of next week and the week after, 2 Wednesdays from now, we got a decision to make on Trent. If he's not traded by then he'll be here until the offseason, and then we'll start playing the will he show up, won't he show up game. And I don't want to play that game. I just want to move on. I just want to wash my hands clean of the situation, get a first-round pick, because trust me, the Browns are desperate enough. They will pony up. They think they're close to winning now, and they may be close to winning now. They very well may be close to winning this season, and a guy like Trent may put them over the top. Who's to say? Bottom line is, I'd love for them to get the opportunity to see. And I'd love to get the opportunity to see if that pick can turn into a top 15 pick for us. Only one way to find out. That's to pull the trigger. But it sounds like Bruce Allen isn't even listening. And that's the frustrating part. It'd be one thing if Bruce came to us and said, hey, look, I picked up the phone. I heard John Dorsey on the other end. He was talking, but a lot of the things he said didn't make any sense to me. It wasn't the type of compensation we were looking for Trent Williams. Remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars made it abundantly clear what it was going to take to get Jalen Ramsey up off of them. All right? They made no secrets, mixed no words about, look, we want multiple first-round picks. It's okay to name your price, because if someone gets desperate enough, they're going to hit it. And you see what happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Rams. Rams got desperate enough. They hit the price. If the Redskins say, look, we want a first-round pick for Trent, at least a first-round pick, the conversation starts there, then that lets teams know exactly what they need to have on the phone when they call up Bruce Allen. They need to start the conversation with a first-round pick. And if it's not to Bruce's liking, then he can say, you know what? Nope, I'm not interested. But at least they know where the conversation starts. If you just leave it vague, or you say we're not talking, then you deter teams from trying to make a deal with you. Bruce has to get off of this hill that he's looking to die on. He has to stop being so damn stubborn and put his ego and pride aside. And Dan too, because I don't think for 1 second that Dan has opposed this. If Dan put his foot down like he did in the draft when he wanted Dwayne Haskins, trust me, Trent's ass would be traded. So Dan is just as guilty as Bruce is in this situation. Don't let Dan off the hook. If Dan told Bruce, move his ass, get a first-round pick for him, Trent would already be traded. Trust me. So Dan is just as guilty as Bruce is in this situation, if not more so. I think both of those guys are delusional. Both of them have egos and they want to win this thing. And there is no winning if you're holding on to Trent and holding him hostage. Move this guy, get something for him. The Browns seem really interested, and I'd love to do business with them because they have a chance to finish this season at 7-9, at 6-10, and that's going to probably be a top 15 pick. You have to weigh the pros and cons, and you may not get a better offer than the one the Browns put on the table. So if you're Bruce Allen and Daniel Snyder and the Redskins organization, what the hell are you waiting on? Make the deal. So it's really frustrating to hear their GM, John Dorsey, pretty much say, hey, look, I picked up the phone. I initiated conversation with them, and I asked about Trent Williams, and they pretty much shut me down. Bruce Allen pretty much wanted no parts of that conversation. That's frustrating because that means they're not even listening to what teams have to offer and what they have to say. And that's no way to go about business. That's loser football. And that's why we're a 1-5 outfit right now, because we don't do the things necessary to become a better organization. And something like trading Trent Williams and getting the maximum value you can for him would have been the smart play. And we might have been able to net a couple of first rounders or something major from the Houston Texans earlier in the offseason. And we missed that boat. And now this is an opportunity to coop something back. And we're turning that opportunity down, it seems like, as well. And that's very frustrating. And for those of you who think that there's any chance potentially, and this isn't the end all be all, but this is just more proof. Another guy that's tapped into this league, that has his ears and antennas up, that hears a lot of what goes on behind closed doors in multiple organizations. He's just another voice that is echoing what people like myself have been saying, which is Bruce Allen isn't going any damn where. Listen to what Jay Glazer had to say on his Ask Jay Glazer segment from Sunday. Listen to what Jay Glazer had to say when it came to Bruce Allen. Someone asked him a question about Bruce Allen and him potentially being ousted here as Redskins team president. This is what Jay Glazer had to say.
Any chance Bruce Allen goes bye-bye if the Redskins go 2-14, 1-15, or 0-16? Honestly, I don't. I really don't. It's Dan Snyder's guy. I think Dan still, just the relationship those two guys have, that's his beer and wins guy. I just don't see it happening. But at some point, if they continue this futility, I do think, look, there's a culture problem there. Even though they say there's no culture problem, there's a culture problem there with the Redskins.
Hey, look, they're boys, man. Bruce is in deep with Dan Snyder. And my man BFG talked about him being somewhat of a yes man, and he's that as well for Dan Snyder. He's a lot of things for Daniel Snyder. And so if you think he's going anywhere, you got another thing coming. I don't see this guy going anywhere anytime soon. As Jay Glazer mentioned, at some point, futility will catch up with this organization, and change will have to be made. We saw it with Vinny Serrato once upon a time. I remember when we were in that moment with Vinny as a bumbling, stumbling idiot as a general manager and as a confidant for Daniel Snyder. We thought that would never end. When we were in that moment, now, Vinny didn't have a 10-year run, all right? But we felt like we felt like Vinny was never going to leave. We really did. And Vinny had a hell of a run, though. I think Vinny's run ended in 2000 when Schottenheimer came on board. And when Schottenheimer got fired, the very same end of that year, Vinny was allowed to come back into the building. So I'm thinking you're looking like 2001 to probably like 2008, maybe 2009, because Bruce Allen came on board in 2009. So it had to be somewhere in that general vicinity, 2007, 2008. So it wasn't as long of a period, but it was dangerously close, and it feels eerily similar. The big difference is, as I mentioned before, Vinny was a bumbling, stumbling yes man, whereas Bruce is a little bit more conniving, deceitful, and he's a little bit more political. So he can handle some of the NFL nonsense and the backdoor deals that go down, and he's a little bit more in tune to what's going on around the league, whereas Vinny really wasn't. So I think Bruce there's just when you got the stadium deal and you got Bruce handling the books, and there's so many things. Bruce handling the fan side of things. Remember, they fired Brian LaFemina, and Bruce took over that. So, I mean, there's so many hats that Bruce wears for this organization. I just don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. But as we get to in other news, you look at today and practice, and Bill Callahan, interim head coach Bill Callahan, speaking after practice, and he had some pretty interesting things to say. Nothing probably more important than the fact that Case Keenum, for the third straight week, did not participate in practice on Wednesday. Remember, 2 weeks ago when he didn't play at all, he didn't participate in practice. Or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, he didn't participate in practice on Wednesday, ultimately started versus the Giants, but didn't play well and was benched after he came back later in the week and actually played. Then last week, or 3 weeks ago, excuse me, he participated in practice Thursday and Friday. He lost the boot, which he was wearing on Wednesday, lost the boot on Thursday, practice Thursday and Friday, played on Sunday versus the Giants, played poorly, was benched in favor of Dwayne Haskins. We all know how that went. The following week after that, leading up to the Patriots game, had the boot on, shed the boot on after Wednesday's practice, was able to practice Thursday and Friday, but ultimately did not go as Case Keenum Colt McCoy got the start versus the New England Patriots. We all know how that went. Now you fast forward this week or last week against the Dolphins. He was a guy that was able to practice for the for all week, as a matter of fact, practiced all week long, took all the reps, was fine. But this week, he's getting a rest. I think it's not anything serious. Callahan said it's not serious, but it's something that they wanted to do with him, give him a little bit of rest. But that's not the part that was intriguing about that statement. Who cares about Case Keenum practicing or not practicing? The thing, because he's not hurt. He's just, they're kind of just making sure he's okay and nursing that foot injury that he has. The real story there is that Dwayne Haskins took all of the first team reps at practice today. Now, when asked about that, and was this a Dwayne thing or was this a Case thing, it would have been great if Callahan would have said, no, this was all about Dwayne Haskins and furthering his development and getting him ready to potentially start down the line. That would have been the best answer that we could have heard as Redskins fans. Music to our ears. But of course, that's not what he was thinking, and that's not what he said. He said, no, this was all about Case. Case is dealing with a foot injury that he sustained back in week 3 versus the Cowboys, versus the Bears. And so we just want to make sure that he's okay and want to continue to give him an opportunity to rest. But Callahan went on to say, hey, this is important for Haskins' development. It's really important, especially on the first day of practice where we're implementing the game plan for the week, for him to get all the reps on that day. That's a big thing for him. And so it sounds good, but really, what does that mean? Because he's still not going to play most likely in this game. If Case Keenum is healthy enough to go and play the entire game, you're probably not going to see Haskins. So I don't know if these types of situations where he's actually getting reps in practice, if these continue to add up to him potentially getting a start down the road. I don't know. We'll see. But he did take all of the first team reps in practice today, did Dwayne Haskins. And so when you look at what Callahan had to say about the defense, he talked about some of the guys defensively. He talked about how he was really impressed with what the interior of the defensive line has done this season, but how we haven't gotten enough from the edge rushers, haven't gotten enough from Kerrigan and Sweat and Anderson and those guys. And while he's right about that, he also said that he feels like those guys are starting to come on, but we need those guys to step up and he said Anderson had by far and away his best day of the season this year, and he's right. I thought Anderson was actually really damn good versus the Miami Dolphins. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. It's the Miami Dolphins, but I thought Ryan Anderson fared very well in that football game, and that was a bogus personal foul penalty on the sack that he had. That was as bad as it gets. I don't know what they want Ryan Anderson to do in that particular moment. That's as good as it gets in terms of a sack and a hit. I mean, they literally wanted the man to dive, I guess, at his chest, because I don't know what else you want him to do in that situation. But nonetheless, he talked about the interior guys getting pressure and doing their job and not getting enough from the guys on the edge. He talked about how well Dunny has played and how Landon Collins, who was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Remember, I told you that was by far and away his best game as a Washington Redskin. And that award that he won, being the Defensive Player of the Week for the NFC, proves that. He was outstanding versus the Dolphins. He was everywhere on the football field. And he said, we want to blitz him more. We got him in a very advantageous situation, one-on-one with the back. You saw him win that matchup. We want to get him in some more of those situations and allow him to get after the quarterback. That's music to my ears as well. I want to see Landon Collins be more aggressive and around the line of scrimmage and making some plays. It was also good to see him making plays away from the line of scrimmage. Everyone wants to put him in the box as a box safety. He showed that he can do some things away from the line of scrimmage versus the Miami Dolphins. So that was also good to see. He talked about the running back position, and they asked, because remember, I talked about Josh Ferguson being a guy that the Redskins have been sniffing around. Who the hell is Josh Ferguson? Don't ask me. I don't know. But they asked him about Darius Geis and when his availability would be, and similar question went to Callahan about Bryce Love, and he mentioned that Darius Geis is about a week or so out from being cleared to practice, and then they'll go from there. As far as Bryce Love is concerned, he's still in his rehabilitation process, and they don't know when he's going to be ready. There isn't a time frame in place for him. I seriously doubt that we'll see Bryce Love this season. That statement kind of tells me that if he was close, you probably would have heard, hey, Bryce is getting really close. And you remember, he started out on the PUP list. So if he's not ready by week number 9, then he's done for the season. So they're running out of time for Bryce Love. I don't anticipate him coming back this season. I expect him to probably be out for the entire year, and we'll just see Bryce Love next year. Just treat this as a redshirt season for him. So, and I'm not rushing him. There's nothing here to be gained for Bryce Love coming back in 2019. So I want to see this guy healthy and ready to rock and roll in 2020 when we'll probably really need him. He also gave us an update on Chris Thompson's injury, which is turf toe, and not really much to talk about. Thompson probably not going to play for the next 3 weeks or so. Turf toe is no joke, especially for a running back where you got to stop and cut and change directions. If you've never hurt your toe, and I've had turf toe, if you've never hurt your toe, your big toe, hell, your pinky toe, if you've never had a toe injury, then you really don't understand just how much you need your toes until you actually have an injury and you realize, God damn it, this is painful and this shit isn't going away. So I don't expect to see Chris Thompson until after the bye week, potentially. It could be that long before Chris Thompson is back off of this turf toe. And he pretty much said that he doesn't have a major update. He said, we'll see what Chris Thompson is able to do tomorrow in practice. I can tell you right now, Chris Thompson won't be able to do much of anything tomorrow in practice. And he just doesn't want to tell them anything. He could have just went ahead and said, yeah, Chris Thompson's going to be out, and we'll reevaluate him next week. He could have said that today, because that's what's going to be said later on during the week. I doubt that Chris Thompson is available this week and even next week, most likely. So, and being that it's a short turnaround Thursday night football game, I don't anticipate seeing Chris Thompson on next week either. So that's going to be a big loss in the pass game, out of the backfield as a pass catcher. But we'll see if Wendell Smallwood and some of the other guys can pick up the slack there. He talked about the receivers, and he also talked about how he wants to see those guys win one-on-one matchups a little bit better in some third and short situations, to be able to separate, give the quarterback a clear target to get the football to. And pretty much what he's saying is, we don't trust our quarterback or our quarterbacks at this moment to make tight window throws accurately, to give our guys a chance to win by throwing them open. So we need our guys to separate, which is fine. Any quarterback in this league, it doesn't matter who you are, you want to see your guy win. But guess what? If he doesn't, if he's got a half a step, or he doesn't win, you got to be able to throw him open. That's what the elite guys in this league do. But we don't have an elite quarterback. So because you don't have an elite quarterback, you need your guys to separate and win, so that your quarterback has an easier throw. And that's pretty much what he talked about. He talked about Terry McLaurin and how he is at a different level in terms of his maturation process and his route running ability and all of that good stuff. But at the end of the day, as we start turning the page to the San Francisco 49ers, I thought to myself, there were so many factors that would give us a chance, and we'll really delve into the 49ers tomorrow. But I just want to kind of start getting you a little bit prepared for the 49ers and what we're going to see. And this might be the best defense in all of football. They're up there. I think there are some other defenses that may be slightly better, but you won't see more talent on defense than this San Francisco 49ers defense, especially up front, with Quan Alexander being the quarterback of that defense at linebacker and the speed he brings to the table. They got the BYU linebacker that was outstanding for them last year, playing really well again this season. And he's a tackling machine in Fred Warner. You also have a defensive line that is just ridiculous with a slew of first-round picks. They added D Ford, if you recall, via trade in the offseason. You've obviously got Nick Bosa. You've got Eric Armstead. You've got Defoe and DeForest Buckner, who is an absolute beast of a man. You've got Solomon Thomas. These guys are just havoc wreakers up front. Any of them can win one-on-one matchups. They destroyed the Rams' offensive line and have been destroying offensive lines all season long. It's going to be tough sledding for the Redskins in the run game. Callahan kind of alluded to that, talked about them and the guys that they have up front and how it's going to be a tough task this week to block those guys, but we've got to get it done. And so when I looked at the 49ers, I tried to convince myself that there was a chance. Okay, so this is a West Coast team coming to play a 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time game. They're changing time zones. It's 10 o'clock their time when they'll be kicking off the football. Maybe that'll have an effect on them. They're coming off an emotional high. They just slayed the bully in their building, in their division last week, shut them down. Their defensive coordinator was jacked. You saw Robert Saleh just really ecstatic for his team, making a couple of big defensive stops throughout the course of that game, holding a high potent Rams offense to just 7 points and keeping Jared Goff under 100 yards, under 80 yards passing in that ball game. They were so jacked. They're 5-0. They feel so good about themselves. That was an emotional high. Maybe there's a letdown in a trap game sitting here for them versus the Redskins. And then I thought about one thing. And I've said this to you guys already, but he's continuing to reiterate that. And that's Kyle Shanahan. Listen to what he had to say about the Redskins at his Wednesday post-game presser or post-practice presser. The first question and the response that you'll hear is Kyle Shanahan responding to what was the best thing about coaching in Washington. Then there is another question, a follow-up, which is what was the worst thing about coaching for the Redskins. Listen to his response, and this is insight into what he's telling his players leading up to the game versus the Redskins in week number 7.
Being able to work with my dad and be around some other good coaches.
What was the worst part?
Everything else. I liked a lot of the players. Some good people.
I listened to Chris Cooley on his podcast talk about how there were so many different factors that he was kind of weaving into this game to give the Redskins a chance. And he was thinking about all of the things that I just mentioned. And he mentioned those same things. And he talked about so many different things that may be able to go in the favor of the Redskins and give them a fighting chance in this game. And then he said, and then I remembered, Kyle Shanahan's their head coach. And he said, I remember very vividly, Chris Cooley said this, I remember very vividly just how Kyle Shanahan would talk about guys that he had grudges against and teams that he had grudges against when we would be in meeting rooms and when we would be in practice, and how he would want to stick it to teams and certain players and certain coaches, and how he held vendettas and how he made sure he motivated his players that week to put a little extra on it to try to go out and get the win. You got to know that there is not one single organization that he despises more than the Washington Redskins for what they did to his father and him while they were here, and how they were ousted and how they were exiled, and they chose Robert Griffin III over them. They have an axe to grind, and Kyle is going to execute as best as he can and really get this message over to his players just how badly he wants to demolish the Redskins. They're down right now at 1-5. He not only wants to kick them while they're down, he wants to bury them under the damn ground. They're going to come in here and they're going to try and murder us. And Kyle Shanahan is not taking his foot off the gas. If they're beating us 41-0 in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go in the game and they're at the 7-yard line and we're out of timeouts or we've already waved the white flag and they got a chance to take knees, they're gonna try to score a touchdown. That's how badly they want to kill us in this game, and it's all going to be spearheaded by Kyle Shanahan. So if you're thinking about a potential letdown or that this team's going to come in here and take us for granted because we're 1-5, you got another thing coming. Kyle Shanahan may want this game more than any other on the schedule, and that makes this game highly unlikely that the Redskins pull it out, and it might make it very, very ugly. Remember how the Bears had us 28-0 in the first half and then kind of pulled their foot off the gas pedal a bit and allowed the Redskins to at least make it respectable? If they get on top of us 21-0 in the first half of this game, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse from there. The Redskins better come with their A game or this thing could get ugly fast, and it could get ugly for a very long time. So I leave you with that. We'll really delve into this game, talk about keys to the game, things that the Redskins can do to make this competitive and give themselves a chance versus the San Francisco 49ers. Not going to be easy. That's a hell of a defense, but they're lacking on the offensive side of the football outside of their run game. So the Redskins will have a shot, but if they don't come with their best brand of football, especially on the defensive side, stopping the run, this thing is going to get ugly and ugly very fast. In any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Redskins Nightly News. Remember, we've got skin in the game. Why? Because we're Skins fans for life. So I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow as we look forward to Week 7's matchup versus the San Francisco 49ers. We'll hear from the coordinators tomorrow as well, or at least Greg Minuski, which usually doesn't mean a damn thing at this point. I would much rather them talk to our offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell, on Thursdays, but they usually don't talk to him until Friday. So unfortunately, we won't have him here and hear what he has to say. But in any event, we'll break it all down here on the Redskins Nightly News tomorrow. If anything happens with Trent Williams or a trade or any of that sort, you can expect the Redskins report to be quickly on tap. So until tomorrow, you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Have a good one. This has been the Redskins Nightly News. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.